Welcome to Pages from the Past. This is a quiet place, a place where history slows down, where the past doesn't rush you, and where learning is allowed to feel gentle. Here, we don't race through dates or shout about battles. We walk instead. We observe. We notice the small, ordinary moments that real people lived through. The kind of moments that history books usually skip. Tonight, you're not here to stay awake. You're here to drift, to rest, to let the past unfold slowly around you. So settle in, get comfortable, lower the lights if you can. If you enjoy calm storytelling like this, you might quietly like the video or subscribe to Pages from the Past. Not as a task, just as a gentle way to return here again. And if you'd like, leave a comment telling us where you're listening from and what time it is there right now. History feels different depending on where the night finds you. You probably won't make it all the way through this story awake. That's perfectly fine. That's exactly how it's meant to be. Now, take a slow breath, and let's turn the page together. Back into the past. The air feels damp and faintly smoky, as if the night itself has been cooking something over a low fire and forgotten to tell you what. Somewhere nearby, a rooster tries to convince everyone it knows the time it does not. You pull your cloak, tighter coarse wool, scratchy. The street beneath your feet is a narrow ribbon of mud and straw that remembers every footstep it has ever known. If you listen closely, you can hear the town breathing, a cough behind a shutter, the creak of a door testing its hinges, the soft complaint of a cartwheel dreaming of motion. You probably won't make it through this day awake. That's not a threat. It's an invitation. Before you walk any farther, settle in. If you're the kind of person who enjoys learning history while drifting toward sleep, you're in the right place. If it helps, you might gently tap like and subscribe. No urgency, no pressure, just a quiet nod of appreciation to the algorithm gods. And if you feel like it, leave a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is there. Medieval people were very interested in where others lived. They asked about it constantly. They also asked about taxes, mostly taxes. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You stand in a medieval town somewhere in Europe, sometime between the 11th and 14th centuries. The exact year politely declining to introduce itself. The sky is a pale gray blue, like linen washed too many times. Chimneys begin to breathe out thin threads of smoke. Bread is already being baked somewhere, and the smell finds you before the baker does. You feel your stomach respond, because hunger is one of the most reliable clocks here. Daily life in medieval times begins early, not because people are virtuous, but because candles are expensive and darkness is persuasive. One major fact anchors your morning. Most medieval towns organized their days around daylight and church bells, not mechanical clocks. Bells call you to prayer, to work, to rest, to remember you exist inside a community, whether you like it or not. When a bell rings, it isn't asking, it's telling. You walk past a well at the center of a small square. Remember this well. You'll come back to it later, and it will look exactly the same, because wells are masters of consistency. A woman is already there, lowering a bucket with the patient strength of someone who has done this since childhood. The rope hums, the bucket splashes, water comes up cold and clean. smelling faintly of stone. This is not glamorous, but it is life. Water shapes the day more than kings do. An obscure detail drifts in as you watch. In some towns, people believed wells had personalities. A good well gave sweet water. A sulky one tasted bitter after storms. No one wrote apology letters to wells, but offerings, pins, quiet hope sometimes slipped beneath the surface. Historians still debate whether these gestures were sincere beliefs or simply boredom mixed with superstition and too much time waiting in line. You move on as the town fully wakes. Shop shutters open like tired eyelids. A cobbler stretches his back and sighs with the drama of a man about to spend 12 hours with shoes that do not love him back. Apprentices sweep doorways, pushing yesterday's dirt into polite piles that will soon become today's dirt. This is the rhythm. Clean, dirty, clean again, without the illusion of victory. The street is alive now with sound. Iron rings against iron. A butcher sharpens his knife, not aggressively, just attentively. Somewhere a baby cries with the impressive lung capacity of someone unconcerned with social norms. Chickens wander freely, convinced they own the place. You step aside for them. Everyone does. Clothing brushes past you-and-dyed wool, faded linen, patched and repatched until the original fabric is a rumor. Bright colors exist, but they're expensive, loud, and usually reserved for people who want to be noticed. Most don't. Most want to blend into the safe middle of the crowd, where survival is easier and expectations are lower. Medieval fashion, you realize, is about durability, not self-expression. The real flex is owning a belt that doesn't snap. As you walk, you pass the church. It looms without trying. Stone walls cool the air around it. Inside, candles flicker like nervous thoughts. This building is more than a place of worship. It's the town's memory, its calendar, its emergency plan. Births, deaths, marriages, feasts, fasts, everything important echoes off these walls. Even people who complain about the church still use it as a landmark. Turn left at the church works, whether you believe or not. A second joke drifts in quietly. Medieval life is often described as simple, which is an interesting way of saying constantly inconvenient. You notice how close everything feels. Homes lean into each other like old friends who share secrets and smells. Privacy is theoretical. If you sneeze, 3 people know about it. If you argue, the whole street listens. This closeness builds community and tension in equal measure. You are never alone, and you are rarely unobserved. A strange cultural tidbit surfaces as you pass a small tavern. In many places, ale was safer to drink than water, because the brewing process killed bacteria. Children drank weak ale. Adults drank stronger ale. The concept of hydration exists, but it tastes like yeast. The tavern smells warm and sour, comforting and faintly alarming. It will be busier later, when the day has earned it. The sun lifts a little higher, and with it, the expectation that you should be doing something useful. Medieval daily life is not idle. Even rest is scheduled. You feel the weight of routine settle gently on your shoulders. Work, prayer, meals, sleep, repeat. It sounds monotonous until you remember how soothing repetition can be. You pause just for a moment and listen again. The bell rings, the town responds. and you move with it, not rushing, not resisting, letting the day carry you forward like a slow river that knows exactly where it's going. The mud has opinions about your shoes, and it shares them freely. You pass the well you saw earlier, told you it would be backhand, now they're a small Q, the social media feed of the medieval world. News travels here, who's sick, who's late, whose cousin did something questionable in the next village. You listen without trying. Information drifts into you the way smoke does, unavoidable and faintly irritating. Work defines the rest of the day. A major historical truth hums beneath everything you see. The vast majority of medieval people were peasants, and their lives revolved around agriculture. Even in towns, fields are never far away in thought or obligation. You don't have a job so much as you belong to a rhythm, planting, tending, harvesting, resting, repeating. The land sets the schedule. You merely comply. You find yourself near the edge of town, where houses loosen their grip on each other and gardens begin to breathe. A man and his older child are repairing a fence, hands moving in quiet coordination. No small talk, no dramatic sighs, just work. The smell of earth is rich here, almost sweet. You feel it under your nails, even without touching anything. The soil is a living thing, respected, feared, occasionally cursed under the breath. An odd cultural detail drifts in as you watch. Medieval farmers often used saints' feast days as agricultural markers. You plant after Saint Someone's Day, harvest before Saint Someone Else gets annoyed. Religion and weather are woven together so tightly that separating them would feel unnatural. Historians still debate how much of this was genuine belief and how much was simply a very elaborate calendar with better branding. You follow a path between fields. The sounds change. Less metal, more wind. Birds argue in the hedges. A distant church bell reminds you that even here, away from stone and smoke, the town hasn't forgotten you. Your pace slows naturally. There is no rush. Productivity is measured in daylight, not minutes. Midday approaches, and with it, food. Meals are simple, filling, and repetitive in a way that modern diets would call concerning. Bread is the center of everything. You tear a piece dense, dark, sometimes gritty, if the millstone was feeling lazy. It tastes like effort. Cheese follows, sharp and proud. On better days, maybe a bit of salted meat. On worse days, you don't talk about it. A light joke slips in as you eat. Medieval cuisine is farm-tootable in the sense that the farm is right there, and the table is wherever you're standing. You notice how communal eating feels. People share space, stories, silence. No one eats alone unless they want to make a statement, and statements are expensive. The tavern you passed earlier is louder now, its door open, laughter spilling out unevenly. Inside, deals are made, grudges softened, songs attempted. Ale mugs thud against tables like punctuation marks. You step inside briefly. The air is thick with warmth and humanity. A man sings slightly off-key. No one stops him. That's kindness. Someone else complains about the Lord's taxes, quietly enough to remain alive. This is another historical fact woven into daily life. Medieval society is rigidly hierarchical. Lords, clergy, peasants, everyone knows where they stand, and pretending otherwise is risky. Still, complaints happen. They just learn to whisper. Back outside, the afternoon stretches. Work resumes. You pass a blacksmith's forge, heat rolling out in waves. Sparks leap like impatient thoughts. The smith's arms are strong in a way that comes from repetition, not vanity. Iron bends, something useful is born. Horseshoes, nails, hinges, small objects that hold the world together without applause. An obscure belief floats up as you watch. Some people thought blacksmiths had a special relationship with fire, bordering on the magical. Fire transforms. Fire obeys them. Fire listens. It's not a stretch to see why this felt uncanny. Even today, anyone comfortable with fire earns a little respect. The day tilts toward evening. Shadows lengthen, softening edges. You return toward town, past the fields, past the fence, past the well, again faithful, unchanged. Remember how the town woke this morning. Now it exhales. Work winds down, not because it's finished, but because the light is leaving. Candles will come out soon, reluctantly. You feel pleasantly tired, the kind of tired that settles into your bones without complaint. This is the texture of medieval daily life. Effort followed by rest. Community wrapped around routine. The slow certainty that tomorrow will look a lot like today. And for now, that's comforting. You keep walking, letting the evening gather around you, already sensing that the night will have its own rules, its own sounds, and its own quiet stories waiting to be told. Evening arrives gently, like it doesn't want to startle you. The sky lowers itself into warmer tones, bruised purples, tired blues colors that look better when you're already a little sleepy. You feel the town change pace beneath your feet. Doors close, not defensively, just practically. Animals are guided home with murmured negotiations. Someone laughs too loudly and then apologizes to the night for it. Remember the tavern from earlier. It's louder now, but not rowdy. This is not the chaos of a modern bar. It's a controlled hum, like a beehive that understands the importance of bedtime. Inside, firelight flickers across wooden beams, darkened by years of smoke. Faces glow and fade in rhythm with the flames. You take a seat near the wall, where listening is easier than participating. Here's one solid historical fact to rest on. Medieval evenings were short. Without cheap lighting, darkness ended productivity quickly. Candles were costly. Tallow smelled unpleasant. Oil lamps were fussy. You don't waste light on boredom. So evenings compress themselves, talk, eat, settle, sleep. There's an efficiency to it that feels almost modern if you squint and ignore the absence of electricity. Food returns, because it always does. Supper mirrors midday meals, but feels calmer, slower. Bread again. Stew this time. Vegetables. Maybe a scrap of meat, if luck and finances aligned. The pot has been simmering all day, absorbing whatever wandered into it. It tastes better than it looks. Most things do here. A quiet joke floats by. Medieval recipes often read like emotional suggestions rather than instructions. Add herbs until it feels right is not helpful when you're anxious, but very soothing when you're tired. Conversation drifts without urgency. Someone recounts a story you've already heard twice today, but no one stops them. Repetition is comforting. Familiarity is currency. You notice how people sit close, not out of romance, but necessity. Heat, companionship, shared space. Loneliness has fewer hiding places here. An obscure cultural tidbit slips in with the ale. In many regions, people believed nighttime was more spiritually dangerous than daytime. Darkness invited wandering souls, mischievous spirits, bad decisions. This is why prayers often bookend the day, and why bells sometimes rang at dusk to remind you to be cautious, grateful, and indoors. Historians still debate whether these fears were sincere beliefs or simply an early form of nothing good happens after dark. You step back outside. The streets are quieter now. The well sleeps, bucket resting like a tired arm. The church stands darker, heavier, its windows catching moonlight. Somewhere a dog barks, then remembers it's late and stops. The air cools. You pull your cloak tighter again, appreciating its persistence. Homes glow softly from within. You glimpse interiors as you pass low tables, benches, straw mattresses tucked into corners. No excess, no clutter, just enough. People prepare for sleep methodically. Embers banked, doors barred, prayers murmured. Sleep is not an afterthought. It's a necessary task. You lie down eventually, wherever home happens to be tonight. Straw rustles beneath you. The scent is earthy, not unpleasant, just honest. Outside, the town settles completely. No engines, no hum of electricity, just breath, wind, the occasional distant cough. You close your eyes, knowing the night is doing its job, holding everything still until morning decides to return. Night deepens, and you wake briefly, not startled, just aware. Medieval sleep is not the uninterrupted 8-tower concept you might imagine. Here's your historical anchor for this section. Many medieval people practiced segmented sleep, resting for a few hours, waking quietly around midnight, then sleeping again until dawn. This first sleep and second sleep structure was normal, practical, and strangely gentle. You sit up slightly, listening. The town is different now, softer, more secretive. A faint glow from a neighbor's window suggests you're not alone in your wakefulness. Someone else stirs, someone prays, someone thinks about something they can't fix tonight. You don't rush. There's no reason to. Time at night feels loose, stretchy. You might step outside briefly, cloak around your shoulders, breath visible in the cool air. The moon hangs low, unconcerned with your schedule. Stars scatter themselves generously, since there's no competition. A light, sleepy joke drifts through your thoughts. Medieval insomnia comes with fewer screens, but more existential reflection. You walk a few steps, careful of uneven ground you know by memory now. Remember the street from this morning. It feels wider at night, emptier, like it's exhaling. The well glimmers faintly. Water reflects starlight without commentary. You pause, because pausing feels right. An odd belief surfaces. Some people thought midnight was the hour when prayers were most powerful, when the boundary between earthly and divine thinned. Whether this was theology or simply a way to justify being awake is unclear. Historians still debate how widespread these practices were, mostly because medieval people didn't leave notes saying couldn't sleep, felt spiritual. Eventually, you return inside. The second sleep waits patiently. You lie down again, body heavy, mind quieter. Dreams come differently this time, slower, deeper. You dream of fields, bells, bread, firelight, of routine doing its quiet work. Outside, the town holds steady. No one is trying to impress anyone. Nothing is optimized. Life is simply being itself. And somewhere in the dark, the next day begins preparing to look very much like the last one. Morning returns without asking your permission. It slips in through cracks and shutters, pale and cool, brushing against your face like a reminder rather than an alarm. You wake during second sleep's gentle ending. This is a working heaviness, the kind that expects to be used. You sit up slowly, straw rustles. A beam overhead creaks in its sleep. Somewhere nearby, someone else yawns with dramatic commitment, as if hoping the sound alone might excuse them from the day. Here is today's firm historical truth to carry with you. Medieval life was governed less by personal choice and more by obligation to land, lord, family, and season. You don't wake up asking what you feel like doing. You wake up asking what must be done. Surprisingly, this clarity is calming. Decision fatigue hasn't been invented yet. You step outside. The air is sharper than yesterday, rinsed clean by night. Smoke rises again from chimneys, repeating itself with admirable discipline. Remember the baker's bread smell from earlier. Bread reassures you. Or someone who looks exactly like her, which is often how history works. She nods. No words are necessary. Shared routines replace small talk. The bucket lowers, splashes, rises. The well remains emotionally neutral. Breakfast is modest. They are functional. A light joke drifts through your thoughts. The concept of brunch would not survive here. It would be questioned, judged, and probably taxed. Work begins immediately. You find yourself among others heading toward fields, workshops, kitchens, looms. Small hands carry small tasks. Watching them, you notice how skill passes down silently, without instruction manuals or motivational speeches. An obscure cultural detail rises with the morning sun. Many medieval people believed certain days of the week were unlucky for specific tasks. Cutting hair on a Friday, risky. Planting on a Tuesday. These beliefs blended astrology, religion, and tradition into a scheduling system that made perfect sense if you grew up with it. Historians still debate how strictly these rules were followed versus selectively remembered when things went wrong. You spend the morning immersed in repetition. Hands move, bodies bend, tools scrape, chop, weave. There is comfort in knowing what comes next. The mind quiets when the body understands its role. You feel time pass, not in minutes, but in muscle memory. By late morning, the bell rings again, a pause, a breath. You straighten your back, feel it protest, ignore it kindly. Life here is not about optimizing comfort. It's about maintaining function. As the sun climbs, you sense the day settling into its familiar shape, and without resistance, you follow it. Midday light rests heavily on the town, flattening shadows and warming stone. You feel it on your shoulders, steady and insistent. This is the brightest part of the day, the window where most work must happen, because evening will arrive, whether you're ready or not. You return briefly to the town center. Remember how busy it felt yesterday. It's busier now. Carts creak, underproduce, grain, wood. A merchant argues gently with a customer, both pretending not to enjoy the ritual. Markets are not chaotic here. they're conversational. Buying something is a social act, not a transaction you rush through while checking a phone you don't have. Here's your anchor fact for this section. Medieval markets were tightly regulated spaces. Prices, weights, even opening times were controlled by local authorities. Fairness mattered, not always achieved, but officially valued. Cheating could earn you fines, public shaming, or creative punishments involving uncomfortable seating arrangements. You watch a woman test a loaf by squeezing it thoughtfully, as if the bread might reveal secrets under pressure. The baker waits, patient. He has time. Everyone does, in a way. Time moves differently when nothing is trying to sell itself as urgent. A curious tidbit drifts by. Some towns employed official ale tasters, whose job was to ensure beer quality. They sometimes tested ale by sitting on a bench spilled with it if they stuck. It was too sugary. This is either brilliant quality control or an excuse to sit down during the workday. Historians still debate which motivation dominated. You eat again. Midday meals are the most substantial, designed to fuel the afternoon. You sit on a low bench, sharing space with others, passing bread, listening to stories that wander and return without apology. Someone complains about the weather, someone praises it. Both feel correct. A dry joke floats up. Complaining about the weather is perhaps the most enduring human tradition. You're participating in history right now. After eating, work resumes, but the energy has shifted. Bodies are warmer, slower. The sun presses down like a gentle hand, reminding you to pace yourself. You move through tasks with less urgency, more patience. Mistakes happen. They're corrected without drama. There is no productivity app to judge you. You notice how sound carries differently. Now voices softer, tools steadier. The town hums rather than buzzes. Somewhere, the church door opens and closes, a quiet punctuation mark in the day. As afternoon begins its slow slide toward evening, you feel that familiar tiredness, returning, not exhaustion, just readiness, the kind that tells you rest will be earned soon. You continue moving, unhurried, knowing the rhythm by heart now, even if you only arrived yesterday. The afternoon thins out slowly, like a conversation that has said everything important and is now comfortable with silence. You feel it in your shoulders first, the weight of the day settling in, not painfully, just insistently. The sun lowers itself a little, enough to soften the glare without fully retreating. This is the hour when mistakes happen more easily, when tools slip, when patience is tested gently rather than shattered. You return to the fields, or perhaps never truly left them. The land doesn't care about your sense of location. It recognizes effort, not narrative structure. You bend, lift, carry, repeat. Your body understands this language fluently now. Your mind drifts because it's allowed to. Here's a solid historical fact to ground you. Medieval agricultural work was deeply seasonal, and daily tasks were dictated by the agricultural calendar more than by personal preference or even weather alone. Planting, weeding, harvesting, threshing, each had its appointed time. Missing it meant hunger later. The stakes were quietly high, which is why everyone takes their time seriously without ever calling it time management. You pause to drink. Water again, drawn earlier, cool and metallic, or weak ale, safer and faintly sour. Hydration, medieval style. A light joke slides in. Electrolyte drinks would have been considered witchcraft, and honestly, that feels fair. Nearby, someone hums while they work. Not a song exactly, more a sound that keeps rhythm. Music here is woven into labor, not separated into playlists. You recognize the tune from yesterday evening, or maybe from childhood, or maybe it's always existed. That's the thing about oral culture. Origins blur kindly. An obscure belief floats into your thoughts as you watch clouds pass. Many medieval people believed certain winds carried illness. A bad cough after an east wind wasn't coincidence, it was explanation. Today you'd call it correlation, maybe even allergens. Then, it was simply knowing how the world behaved. Historians still debate how much these ideas influenced actual medical practices versus just giving people something to blame. By mid-afternoon, children reappear not as workers now, but as motion. They chase each other between rows, inventing games with rules that change mid-sentence. Laughter breaks the steady soundscape, brief and bright. No one stops them unless they get underfoot. Joy is allowed here, as long as it doesn't interrupt survival. You straighten up again, slower this time. Your back complains quietly. You acknowledge it, like an old acquaintance. Bodies age faster when they're used fully, but they also belong completely to their owners. No gym memberships, no fitness goals, just function. The bell rings again, distant but clear. It doesn't end work yet, but it reminds you that the day is finite. That reminder feels kind rather than threatening. You wipe your hands on your clothes. No one cares. No one cares. Begin the gradual shift toward wrapping things up. The sun tilts. Shadows lengthen. You feel the day loosening its grip. Late afternoon leans toward evening with the patience of something that knows it will arrive eventually. You walk back toward town, tools slung over shoulders, baskets lighter than they were this morning. Dust clings to your hems. Your body carries the faint warmth of sustained effort, a heat that will fade soon enough. Remember the market square from earlier. It's quieter now. Stalls are closing, goods packed away, unsold items returning home with their sellers. There's no dramatic disappointment. Tomorrow is another chance. Commerce here understands continuity better than urgency. You pass the well again, yes. Still there, and this time someone washes vegetables at its edge. Water darkens the earth beneath their hands. The scene feels familiar, reassuringly repetitive. This is how places become home, by refusing to surprise you. Here's the historical fact to settle into. Medieval towns were small by modern standards, and most people lived their entire lives within a short radius of where they were born. Travel happened, but it was notable, memorable, worth talking about for years. Daily life, by contrast, was intensely local. The world was wide in theory and narrow in practice. You pause near a doorway where a woman spins wool, fingers moving with practiced ease. The spindle hums, softly, hypnotic. Wool production is constant, endless. Clothing wears out. Weather doesn't apologize. This quiet labor supports everything else, and it's often done in moments like these, between tasks, between breaths. A strange cultural tidbit drifts in as you watch. Spinning and storytelling were often linked. People believed spinning thread loosened the tongue, encouraged memory. Myths, family histories, gossip all unwound alongside wool. It's tempting to imagine that entire epics survived simply because someone needed to keep their hands busy. Historians still debate how much domestic work shaped oral tradition, but it's hard not to see the connection. You feel hunger return, gentle but firm. Supper approaches. Fires are lit again, smoke rising in slightly thicker lines. The smell of stew returns, familiar as yesterday, altered just enough to keep it interesting. Someone adds herbs, someone forgets salt. No one complains out loud. A quiet joke slips by. Medieval meal planning is essentially what didn't tea escape or spoil today. You step inside a home, low ceiling, warm fire, benches arranged for efficiency rather than aesthetics. People gather. Stories begin where they left off yesterday, or perhaps years ago. Someone mentions the weather again. Someone nods solemnly. Traditions persist because they work. As evening settles fully, you feel the same tiredness as before, but deeper now. Not exuberant completion, the kind that makes rest feel earned rather than necessary. You sit, eat, listen, letting the day fold itself neatly behind you, already sensing that night will soon arrive to smooth the edges once more. Night arrives again, unannounced but expected, like a friend who never knocks because they know you're home. The fire has settled into embers, glowing softly, the kind of light that doesn't demand attention. You sit close enough to feel its warmth on your shins, far enough away to trust it. The room smells of smoke, wool, and the faint echo of supper. Someone stretches, someone sighs, someone says nothing for a long time, and no one rushes to fill the space. This is the hour of small repairs. A loose strap is mended, a cracked handle is wrapped. Fingers move slowly, carefully, because mistakes are harder to undo by firelight. Here's your grounding historical fact for the night. Medieval households relied heavily on constant maintenance. Objects weren't disposable, they were companions. You fixed what broke because replacement meant expense, travel, negotiation, and waiting. Patience was not a virtue, it was a requirement. You watch a needle pass through fabric, over and over, steady as breath. The rhythm is calming. The work feels like listening. Outside, the town has gone quiet again, but not empty. Sound simply learns to whisper after dark. An obscure belief drifts into the room with the smoke. Some people thought sewing after sunset invited bad luck, especially repairs to clothing you were wearing. Something about tempting fate or confusing spirits who couldn't see clearly in low light. Others ignored this entirely. Practicality often won quiet arguments with superstition. Historians still debate how much these rules governed real behavior versus just giving people a reason to stop working and rest. You feel your eyelids grow heavier. Conversation thins. Someone mentions tomorrow's weather with cautious optimism. Someone else mutters that optimism is suspicious. A light joke slides through your thoughts. Medieval forecasting is mostly look at the sky and hope for the best, which honestly still holds up. Eventually, you lie down again. Straw shifts beneath you, familiar now. The room settles around its sleepers. Breathing synchronizes without effort. Outside, the moon climbs, pale and indifferent. The town rests, held together by habit and exhaustion. You drift into sleep, knowing you'll wake again, briefly, because that's how nights work here. Nothing urgent, nothing dramatic, just the gentle unfolding of rest. You wake in the quiet middle of the night, the world paused between intentions. This is the space between first sleep and second sleep, the soft hinge of medieval rest. You don't feel alarmed. Waking now feels normal, almost expected, like turning over in bed and noticing a thought you forgot earlier. The room is dim, but not dark. Embers glow faintly, like the memory of warmth. You sit up, stretching slowly, careful not to disturb anyone else. Somewhere nearby, another sleeper shifts. You're not alone in this wakefulness. You never are. Here's your historical anchor for this hour. Records from medieval Europe, letters, diaries, court testimonies suggest that this midnight waking was common and socially accepted. People prayed, reflected, even visited neighbors. Sleep was flexible, responsive, not a rigid performance to be optimized. No one worried about sleep quality. They simply slept again when it felt right. You step outside briefly because the night feels inviting rather than threatening. The air is cool, crisp, carrying the faint smell of damp earth. Stars scatter across the sky with reckless generosity. You recognize none of the constellations, but you trust they're doing something important. A quiet, dry joke wanders in. Medieval stargazing is mostly those lights are probably meaningful, followed by respectful nodding. You walk a few careful steps. The street you know so well now feels altered, larger, softer. Remember how busy it was this morning. Now it belongs to silence. The well reflects moonlight again, patient, unchanged. You pause beside it, listening to nothing in particular. An odd belief surfaces gently. Many people thought dreams during second sleep were more prophetic than those earlier in the night. The mind, they believed, was calmer, more receptive. Whether this was spiritual insight or just the brain doing interesting things after rest is unclear. Historians still debate how much importance medieval people placed on dreams versus how much they enjoyed talking about them afterward. You return indoors, feeling the pull of rest again. You lie down, letting your body sink into familiar shapes. Breathing slows. Thoughts loosen their grip. Outside, the town holds its breath, waiting for morning. And you slip back into sleep, carried by routine, wrapped in the quiet certainty that the day will begin again soon, just as it always does. Morning returns with the same steady confidence it had yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that, stretching back farther than anyone you know can remember. You wake during the soft unraveling of second sleep, your body already anticipating movement. The room is cool. The embers have gone shy, hiding their warmth under a dusting of ash. Someone coughs politely, as if even illness understands the need for manners at this hour. You rise slowly. No one leaps out of bed here. Mornings are negotiated, not conquered. You step outside and feel the air settle on your skin, cool, faintly damp, edged with the promise of another clear day. The sky looks undecided again, pale and quiet, as if it's still checking its notes. Here's your grounding historical fact for the morning. Hygiene in medieval daily life was far more regular than modern stereotypes suggest. People washed their hands and faces daily, bathed when water and fuel allowed, and considered cleanliness a sign of good character. You won't find medieval people proudly announcing they never bathed. That's a later rumor. Like many things blamed unfairly on the past, you splash water from a basin onto your face. It's bracing, honest, no scented soap, no marketing claims, just water doing its job. Someone nearby combs their hair carefully, fingers moving with practiced patience. Appearance matters, not for vanity, but for respectability. You present yourself to the day, because the day is going to see you regardless. Breakfast repeats itself faithfully. Bread again, always bread. You tear it, chew slowly, feeling yesterday's labor still living in your muscles. Weak ale warms your stomach. Coffee has not arrived yet. You survive anyway. A light joke drifts through your thoughts. Medieval mornings build character mostly by refusing to offer caffeine. The bell rings, the sound moves through the town like a shared thought. Doors open, animals stir, the street fills with quiet motion. Remember the cobbler from earlier? He's back at his bench, tools laid out like familiar friends. The repetition is comforting now, like returning to a story you already know the ending of. You walk toward your work again, whatever shape it takes today. Fields shimmer with dew. Workshops breathe out the smells of wood, iron, wool. Each craft claims its corner of the town, its own sound, its own rhythm. You feel yourself slipping back into the collective motion without effort. An obscure cultural detail surfaces as you walk. Medieval people often named tools and animals, not sentimentally, but practically. Names created familiarity, accountability. You're less likely to mistreat something that answers to a name, even if it's just in your head. Historians still debate how widespread this practice was, mostly because people rarely wrote down, "This shovel's name is Thomas." The morning passes in focused quiet. Hands work, minds wander gently. You notice how few distractions exist. Nothing buzzes, nothing flashes. Attention belongs to whatever is directly in front of you. You feel oddly lighter for it. As the sun climbs again, you sense the shape of the day settling into place, familiar as the feel of your own breath. Midday approaches with its predictable weight, the sun now high enough to flatten the world slightly, smoothing edges and dulling urgency. You feel hunger return not as an emergency, but as a suggestion. Your body knows the schedule, even if you pretend not to. You drift back toward town, steps slower now, unforced. Remember how the market sounded yesterday. It's alive, again, voices overlapping, carts complaining, animals offering unsolicited commentary. The air is warmer here, thick with movement and smell. Herbs, leather, smoke, humanity. Here, your historical anchor for this stretch of the day. Medieval diets were monotonous but surprisingly balanced for those who had steady access to food. Grains, vegetables, occasional dairy, rare meat. Nutritional variety existed, just quietly. No one tracked macros. They tracked seasons. You sit for the midday meal, among others, close enough to feel elbows brush. Food is passed hand to hand. No plates to hoard, no personal space bubbles to defend. Eating is social by default. Silence happens sometimes, but it's shared, not awkward. A dry joke floats through your mind. Medieval table manners are mostly Dan T. Steele, someone else's bread, and you, LLB, fine. Conversation wanders. Someone mentions a relative who traveled once, years ago, and still talks about it. Someone else complains about taxes again, because tradition matters. Laughter rises briefly, then settles. No one lingers too long. The day still has expectations. An odd cultural tidbit slips into the moment. Many medieval people believed digestion was improved by conversation and gentle movement after eating. Sitting too still was considered unhealthy. You glance around at people standing, stretching, already preparing to return to work. It feels like instinct more than theory. Historians still debate how much medieval medical advice shaped behavior versus simply reflecting what people noticed worked. Work resumes, but the tone has shifted. The morning's sharp focus softens, movements slow. Mistakes are met with patience rather than frustration. The sun presses down steadily, reminding you to pace yourself. You comply. You feel time stretch, again not long, not short, just wide. The bell will ring later. Evening will return. For now, you move through the afternoon's calm repetition, knowing exactly where you are, and exactly what comes next, without needing to think about it too hard. The afternoon begins to tilt again. Not dramatically, just enough that you notice the light changing its mind. Shadows stretch like cats waking from naps, unhurried, unconcerned with productivity. Your body feels warm now, worked into a comfortable dull ache that tells you the day has been used properly. You're back at your tasks, but everything feels looser. The urgency of morning has faded. No one says this out loud, but everyone knows the hardest work is behind them. What remains is endurance, finishing, tidying, preparing for tomorrow without pretending today can be extended. Here's your solid historical fact to rest into. Medieval labor was rarely solitary. Even when tasks were individual, they were done in proximity to others. Work was communal by default. Silence existed, but isolation did not. The idea of working alone all day would have felt strange, even suspicious. You hear voices nearby, not conversation exactly, more like verbal markers of presence. A cough. A muttered comment about the weather still relevant. A shared grunt as something heavy is lifted. These sounds form a background hum, grounding you. You belong to it now. A strange little cultural belief drifts into your thoughts as you work. Some medieval communities believed whistling while working attracted bad luck, especially in fields. Singing was acceptable. Whistling, apparently, was too cheerful, too reckless. Historians still debate whether this belief had spiritual roots or whether whistlers were simply annoying and someone needed an excuse to stop them. You pause to stretch, rolling your shoulders slowly. The movement feels earned. No one judges. Bodies here are respected for what they can still do, not criticized for what they can't. Aging is visible, accepted, unhidden. Wrinkles are proof of survival, not a problem to solve. Children pass by again, now calmer, carrying small bundles, learning the quiet competence of being useful without being noticed. You remember the laughter from earlier and feel a gentle echo of it now, like a memory settling into place. A dry joke wanders through your mind. Medieval multitasking is mostly doing one thing while thinking about another thing you'll do later. The sun lowers further. Tools are cleaned. leaned carefully against walls, tucked away where they won't rust or wander off. Animals are guided back again, the day's second negotiation. The bell rings not sharply, but with familiarity. This one means begin-ending. You feel a subtle shift in yourself. The day's edges soften, thoughts slow, the sense of time narrows, focusing you inward. You move back toward town, toward warmth, toward voices that will soon quiet again. As you walk, you realize how much of this life is built around knowing when to stop. Not because the work is done, but because continuing would cost more than it gives. It's a lesson learned without words, passed down through habit. You carry it with you as evening approaches once more. Evening settles like a blanket pulled gently over the town, tucking it in without ceremony. The sky warms again, briefly, as if apologizing for the coming dark. Fires are lit with practiced hands. Smoke rises thicker now, curling lazily into the cooling air. You arrive back where you'll eat, rest, and eventually disappear into sleep. The space feels familiar. Remember how strange it felt the first night. Now it feels expected, almost comforting. Familiarity has done its quiet work. Here's your grounding historical fact for this moment. Medieval households often included more than just immediate family. Servants, apprentices, extended relatives. Many lived and ate together under one roof. Privacy was limited. Community was unavoidable. You learned patience, or at least the appearance of it. Supper arrives again, unceremoniously. The pot is opened. Steam escapes. The smell is rich, promising nothing fancy, but delivering exactly what you need. You eat slowly, feeling the warmth spread. Conversation flickers, then fades. No one forces cheerfulness. Tiredness is respected. A light joke drifts in as you chew. Medieval comfort food is simply food, which is a remarkably efficient category. After eating, the room rearranges itself without instruction. Someone clears bowls. Someone adds wood to the fire. Someone begins telling a story that may or may not be true, but everyone listens anyway. Truth here is flexible when the point is companionship. An obscure cultural tidbit surfaces quietly. Storytelling in medieval homes wasn't always entertainment. It was education, memory, and social glue. Tales carried lessons, warnings, lineage. They were repeated until they became part of the furniture. Historians still debate how much these stories shaped behavior versus simply reflecting it. You listen without strain. The fire pops softly. Shadows move along the walls. Your body sinks into stillness. Outside, the town darkens. Doors closing gently. Animals quieting. The well returning to its reflective silence. Eventually, the story trails off. No one announces bedtime. People simply begin lying down, settling, preparing. You follow, easing yourself into straw that now feels like an old acquaintance. As you close your eyes, you sense the day folding neatly behind you. Not erased, just stored. Tomorrow will look similar. That's not a threat, it's reassurance. Your breathing slows, the fire dims, the town exhales, and once again you drift toward sleep, carried by routine repetition, and the gentle certainty that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You wake again in the middle of the night, not fully awake, not fully asleep, balanced on that familiar medieval threshold where time feels optional. The room is darker now. The fire has finally surrendered, leaving only a memory of warmth. Someone nearby shifts, then settles. No one speaks. Speech would feel unnecessary, almost rude. You sit up slowly, joins acknowledging the movement with mild commentary. Outside, the town is quieter than before, deeper into its rest. The air feels heavier, as if night has finished arranging itself. You breathe it in, cool, damp, honest. Here's the historical truth anchoring this quiet hour. Medieval nights were genuinely dark. Without ambient light, darkness had weight. It wasn't romantic, it was practical, sometimes unsettling, often respected. People planned their evenings, knowing night would eventually erase detail. This shaped behavior, fear, and imagination more than any sermon ever could. You step outside again, careful, familiar with the uneven ground now. The street feels wider, like it does every night. Remember how full it was this afternoon. Now it belongs to stillness. The well catches moonlight again, obedient, unchanged. You pause beside it, because pauses are easy here. A strange belief drifts through your thoughts. Many people believed the dead were closest to the living at night, not threatening, just nearby. Ancestors lingered. Memory thickened. This wasn't horror, it was continuity. Historians still debate whether this belief was spiritual comfort or simply the result of too much quiet and not enough distraction. A soft, ironic thought wanders in. Medieval nighttime mindfulness involves mostly staring into darkness and thinking about your life choices. Eventually, you feel the pull of rest again, not tiredness, exactly permission. You return indoors, lie down, adjust the straw until it cooperates. Your body sinks, breath slows, thoughts stretch and thin. You drift back into sleep, knowing the day has not truly ended. Morning returns once more, patient and unapologetic. Light slips in carefully, testing corners before committing. You wake during second sleep's gentle conclusion, already familiar with this transition. There's no surprise left in it, just acceptance. You rise. The room greets you with quiet acknowledgement. Someone else is already awake, moving slowly, as if not to disturb the day while it's still forming. Outside, the town prepares itself against smoke, footsteps, soft voices, testing the morning. Here's your grounding historical fact for today. Medieval daily life was intensely repetitive, but not experienced as boring. Novelty was rare, yes, but meaning came from continuity. From seeing the same places and people change gradually over time. Stability was not stagnation, it was survival. You wash again, cold water, familiar shock. You feel awake immediately. No mirror required. You know your face by touch now. Hair is combed, clothing adjusted, everything reused, nothing wasted. Breakfast returns faithfully. Bread, always bread. You eat without expectation of variety. Hunger is quieted. That is enough. A gentle joke drifts through your thoughts. Medieval meal planning is mostly bread, but emotionally different this time. The bell rings. Again, you step into the street with everyone else, folding into motion as naturally as breath. Remember the cobbler, still there. Remember the baker, still working. Remember the well. Of course you do. It has never failed you. You walk toward your work, muscles remembering before your mind does. Fields glisten with dew again. Tools wait patiently. The land offers no commentary, only expectation. An obscure cultural detail surfaces as you move. Medieval people often marked time by saints' days rather than numbered dates. After St. Martin meant something precise, emotional, seasonal. Time felt personal, not abstract. Historians still debate whether this made life feel slower or simply more grounded. The morning settles in around you. Work resumes. The rhythm returns effortlessly. You are no longer a visitor. You are part of the pattern now. And as the sun climbs once more, you move with unhurried, familiar, already knowing how the day will end and finding comfort in that knowledge. The day stretches into its middle again with a practiced calm, like a story that knows it doesn't need surprises to stay interesting. The sun rests high enough to warm stone and soil, but not so high that it feels cruel. You feel it on your back as you work, steady and impartial, warming everyone equally, whether they deserve it or not. Your hands move almost on their own now. You simply do it. This is how skill feels here. Quiet, unannounced, unmeasured. No certificates, no applause, just competence, repeating itself. Here's your historical anchor for this moment. Medieval labor was learned through observation and repetition, not formal instruction. Apprentices watched, copied, failed, tried again. Knowledge lived in bodies more than in books. You didn't master a craft. You grew into it slowly, like a familiar coat. You pause to drink again. Water or ale it hardly matters. Both tastes like effort and relief. Nearby, someone wipes sweat from their brow and laughs softly at nothing in particular. Humor doesn't always need a punchline. Sometimes it's just acknowledgement that the day is happening. A curious cultural tidbit drifts in as you rest. Many medieval people believed excessive laughter was unhealthy, even dangerous, because it disturbed the body's balance. Smiling was acceptable, chuckling, maybe. Uncontrolled laughter, suspicious. Historians still debate whether this belief came from medical theory or simply from people who didn't enjoy loud noises. You resume work, slower now, more deliberate. The sun presses gently, reminding you to conserve energy. The afternoon hum deepens, less chatter, more rhythm. Tools scrape, hands pat soil flat, wool is pulled, twisted, wound. Everything returns to its place. Children move through the edges of the day again, quieter now, mimicking adults with exaggerated seriousness. You see yourself in them, or maybe you imagine it. The continuity feels reassuring either way. A dry thought wanders in. Medieval work-life balance is mostly work until dark. Then stop because you physically can't see. The bell rings, distant but clear. It's not an ending yet, just a marker. Time is being gently folded, section by section. You feel the day beginning to loosen its grip again, preparing to hand you back to evening. You straighten, stretch, and turn toward town once more, already anticipating firelight, food, and the familiar quiet that waits at the end of another used day. Late afternoon slips toward evening with the ease of something well practiced. The light grows softer, warmer, as if the sun is trying to leave on good terms. Shadows stretch and blur, hard edges lose their confidence. You walk back toward town, steps slower now, shaped by habit rather than urgency. Remember how the market sounded at midday. It's nearly silent now. Stalls stand empty, goods tucked away, promises postponed until tomorrow. A few people linger, finishing conversations that don't need to end yet. No one rushes them. Time is forgiving here, especially at this hour. Here's the historical fact to settle into as evening approaches. Medieval towns operated on shared rhythms, not personal schedules. Curfews existed in many places, marked by bells or calls, signaling when fires should be banked and doors closed. This wasn't about control so much as survival. One careless flame could erase everything. You pass a doorway where someone carefully covers embers with ash, sealing warmth for the night. The motion is precise, practiced. Fire is treated like a respected animal, useful, dangerous, deserving of attention. An odd cultural belief surfaces as you watch. Many people believed spirits were more likely to enter homes through open doors and windows at dusk. Closing them wasn't fear, it was etiquette. Historians still debate how literal these beliefs were versus how much they simply reinforced good habits. You feel hunger again, softer this time. Supper waits. You join others inside, warmth wrapping around you immediately. The smell of stew greets you like an old acquaintance. You sit, eat, listen. Conversation drifts, settles, resumes. No one dominates. No one performs. A gentle joke slips through your thoughts. Medieval dinner parties are mostly we all survived today. Congratulations. After eating, the room rearranges itself again without discussion. Someone hums, someone mends, someone stares into the fire, lost in thought that doesn't need sharing. The fire crackles quietly, punctuation for the evening. Outside, the town darkens fully, doors close. The well returns to stillness. The street empties, not dramatically, just thoroughly. Inside, tiredness deepens into readiness. You lie down once more, straw familiar beneath you, the ceiling a known shape. Your body sinks with relief, breathing slows, thoughts blur at the edges. The day folds itself away, gently, stored alongside the others, indistinguishable but comforting in its familiarity. And as sleep approaches again, you let it take you, trusting the rhythm that has carried you this far and will carry you again tomorrow. You wake again during the quiet hinge of night, that soft middle where sleep loosens its grip and releases you gently, like it trusts you to come back. The room is darker than before. Even the embers have forgotten their glow. Darkness here isn't empty, it's thick, layered, holding the shape of everything you can't see. You lie still for a moment, listening. Someone breathes nearby, slow and steady. Somewhere outside, wood shifts as it cools, making a sound that might once have inspired a legend if anyone were awake enough to care. The town feels suspended, balanced carefully between yesterday and tomorrow. Here's your historical anchor for this quiet stretch. Medieval people lived with constant background, uncertainty, illness, weather, war, famine, but daily life trained them to accept uncertainty without dwelling on it. There was no expectation of control, only preparation. You couldn't manage risk. You learned to live beside it. You sit up slowly. The movement feels deliberate, ceremonial, even. Outside, the night air waits, cool and slightly damp, brushing against your skin like a reminder that the world exists even when you're not looking at it. The sky is clear tonight. Stars scatter themselves freely, unbothered by your concerns. A small, ironic thought drifts in. Medieval stress management techniques include prayer, routine, and going to bed because there's nothing else to do. You take a few steps along the street, careful now, guided by memory rather than sight. Remember how crowded this place felt earlier today. Now it feels immense, as if space has expanded in the absence of noise. The well glimmers, faintly again, always present, always unchanged. You stop beside it, because stopping feels right. An obscure belief slips into your thoughts. Some medieval people thought water reflected not just light, but truth. Looking into it at night was said to reveal hidden thoughts, or at least encourage them. Historians still debate whether this belief held spiritual weight or simply offered people a quiet place to think without interruption. You don't look too long. Some thoughts are better left unexamined at midnight. Eventually, the pull of rest returns, not heavy, just firm. You head back inside, lie down carefully, adjust the straw until it agrees. Your body sinks, breathing slows. The night accepts you again without comment. Sleep returns, deeper now, less curious, carrying you gently toward morning without asking for anything in return. Morning arrives again, steady and predictable, the most reliable thing in your world. Light seeps in through cracks and shutters, pale at first, then more confident. You wake during the soft end of second sleep, body already preparing itself for movement. There's no rush, there's no need. You rise. The room feels cooler now, air refreshed by the night. Someone else is already awake, moving quietly, as if respecting the morning while it finishes forming. Outside, the town stirs in familiar ways, smoke lifting, doors opening, footsteps testing the ground. Here, your historical fact to anchor the day. Medieval life was shaped by shared expectations rather than individual ambition. Success wasn't about standing out. It was about fitting in, meeting obligations, maintaining relationships, surviving with dignity. The idea of finding yourself would have felt confusing. You already knew who you were by where you belonged. You wash again, cold water, bracing you awake. No mirrors, no self-assessment. You know your face well enough. Clothes are shaken out, adjusted, trusted to do their job again. They always have. Breakfast appears, as it always does. Bread, always bread. You eat without complaint, because complaint doesn't improve flavor. Weak ale warms your stomach. Energy returns quietly. A gentle joke passes through your thoughts. Medieval mornings are sponsored by bread and optimism. The bell rings. The sound rolls through the town like a shared breath being released. You step outside with everyone else, folding into motion naturally now. Remember how uncertain you felt on the first morning. That uncertainty has softened. You move like someone who belongs. You walk past the same faces, the same doors, the same well, still faithful, still waiting. Work draws you onward. Fields and workshops ready to receive your effort again. Tools wait patiently, exactly where you left them. An obscure cultural detail surfaces as you move. Medieval people often believed that beginning work with a small ritual crossing oneself. Saying a brief phrase, touching a tool, brought steadiness to the day. It wasn't superstition so much as focus. Historians still debate how consciously these rituals were practiced versus how naturally they emerged from habits. You begin again, hands move, muscles remember. The day settles into its shape almost immediately, familiar and reassuring. As the sun climbs, you feel the rhythm wrap around you once more, steady and dependable. You know how this day will unfold. You know how it will end. And for now, that knowledge feels like rest all by itself. The day eases into its middle once more, the sun settling overhead like it has found its favorite chair and plans to stay a while. You feel the warmth soak through your clothes, into muscle and bone. Not uncomfortable, just present. The work continues, but now it feels less like effort and more like motion, as if the day is carrying you instead of the other way around. Your hands know what to do before you tell them. There's a quiet pleasure in this, a sense of being useful without needing to prove it. You notice how rarely anyone here asks if something matters. It matters because it's being done. That seems to be enough. Here's your grounding historical fact for this part of the day. Medieval communities relied heavily on mutual obligation. If a roof needed fixing, fields harvesting, or a fence rebuilding, neighbors helped because they would need help later. This wasn't charity, it was insurance, socially enforced and emotionally understood. You didn't ask whether to help, you showed up. You pause for water, wiping your hands on your clothes without concern. Nearby, someone tells a familiar story again about a harvest long ago, about weather that nearly ruined everything, about how it turned out fine in the end. You've heard it before. You listen anyway. Repetition isn't laziness here, it's reassurance. A quiet, ironic thought wanders in. Medieval storytelling is mostly, let me tell you how bad it could have been. An odd cultural detail drifts into your awareness as clouds move overhead. Many medieval people believed certain cloud shapes foretold specific outcomes: rain, illness, good fortune. Watching the sky wasn't idle behavior, it was preparation. Historians still debate whether these interpretations guided real decisions or simply helped people feel less surprised by whatever came next. The sun climbs, presses gently. You feel hunger stirring again, not sharply, just insistently. Midday approaches with its familiar gravity. Tools slow, movements become deliberate. No one says it, but everyone feels it at once. The bell rings. You straighten, stretching carefully. Muscles complain briefly, then settle. You move back toward town with the others. Steps unhurried, dust rising softly beneath your feet. As you walk, you realize how deeply the rhythm has settled into you now. You don't count days, you feel them. And this one is right on schedule. Midday gathers the town again like a quiet invitation everyone understands. You arrive without rushing, joining others already settling into benches, low walls, shaded corners. The sun is high, but the mood is unpressured. This is the pause built into the day, earned and respected. Here's the historical anchor for this moment. Medieval meals were social anchors, not just refueling stops. Eating together reinforced bonds, shared news, and quietly reminded everyone who belonged where. Even disagreements softened at the table, at least temporarily. Hunger has a way of encouraging cooperation. Food is passed. Bread again always breaded, broken and shared without ceremony. A pot is opened. Steam rises. The smell is familiar, comforting in its predictability. You eat slowly, savoring warmth more than flavor. Conversation drifts around you, gentle and unforced. A light joke slips through your thoughts. Medieval dining is less about taste and more about gratitude that the pot exists at all. Someone mentions a traveler who passed through years ago, still remembered because travel itself is remarkable. Someone else nods solemnly, adding a detail that may or may not be accurate. Accuracy is flexible when memory is communal. An obscure cultural tidbit surfaces as you listen. In some medieval communities, people believed eating too quickly was unhealthy and impolite, as if it confused the body. Meals encouraged lingering, chewing, talking. Historians still debate whether this belief stemmed from medical theory or simply from the practical need to make limited food last longer. When the meal ends, no one leaps up. People stretch, stand, adjust clothing. Some walk a little, easing digestion the way custom suggests. The day resumes gradually, like a river finding its course again after widening briefly. You return to your work with softened energy, the afternoon already waiting for you. The sun presses down steadily now, reminding you to pace yourself. You comply without resistance. As you move back into motion, you sense the familiar arc forming again. Work, slowing, evening rest. You don't rush it. There's no benefit in arriving early. You settle into the afternoon's quiet rhythm, knowing exactly where you are in the day and feeling oddly comforted by that certainty. The afternoon loosens again, stretching out like a cat that has decided it is finished, pretending to be productive. The sun lowers just enough to take the edge off its authority. Light softens, sounds dull slightly, as if the day itself is growing tired and lowering its voice out of courtesy. You feel it in your body. First movements slower, thoughts less sharp, but not unpleasantly so. This is the hour where you work because stopping too early would feel wrong, but pushing too hard would feel foolish. Experience has taught everyone here where that line lives. Here's your grounding historical fact for this stretch of time. Medieval workdays were long, but they were not uniformly intense. Labor followed natural rises and dips in energy, shaped by daylight and weather rather than clocks. People adjusted effort intuitively, conserving strength because tomorrow was not optional. You wipe your hands, adjust your grip, continue. Nearby, someone hums, again not the same tune as yesterday, but close enough that it feels related. Music here isn't owned. It drifts, adapts, survives by being forgettable in the right way. A subtle, dry thought wanders in. Medieval productivity metrics are mostly did we survive and not anger anyone important. An odd cultural belief floats gently through your awareness. Many medieval people thought working too late into the evening invited misfortune, not exhaustion misfortune, as if the day itself resented being extended. Historians still debate whether this belief came from superstition or from generations of people noticing that tired mistakes were often expensive ones. Children reappear briefly, helping with final tasks, carrying light loads, absorbing routine the way soil absorbs rain. You watch them move with exaggerated seriousness, proud to be useful. No one praises them loudly. Praise here is quiet, implied by inclusion. Tools begin to return to their resting places. Not abruptly, just naturally, one by one, as if everyone agreed silently that enough had been done. The bell rings again, familiar now, its meaning understood, without explanation. This one says, begin ending. You feel relief move through the group, subtle but shared. Shoulders lower, backs straighten carefully. The day exhales. You turn toward town again, dust rising softly with each step, light fading into warmth, then into amber. The well waits as always, reflecting the sky's slow retreat. You nod to it, privately appreciative of its consistency. As evening approaches once more, you carry with you the gentle satisfaction of a day neither rushed nor wasted, just lived through at a human pace. Evening returns with practiced ease, like a song everyone knows, the second verse of by heart. Fires are lit again, smoke curling upward in lazy spirals. The air cools, slipping easily under your clothes, reminding you that rest is near. You step inside, familiar warmth. The room greets you without ceremony. Benches, fire, low ceiling, all exactly where they should be. Remember how overwhelming this space felt the first night. Now it feels like a known shape your body fits into naturally. Here's the historical anchor to settle into tonight. Medieval evenings were for maintenance, not ambition. You didn't start new projects after dark. You preserved what already existed: tools, clothing, relationships. The future was approached cautiously, one repaired strap at a time. Supper arrives again, unremarkable and welcome. You eat slowly, tasting warmth more than detail. Conversation flickers, gently, nothing urgent, nothing demanding. Someone repeats a story you've heard before. You listen anyway. Familiar stories are easier to carry when you're tired. A soft joke drifts through your thoughts. Medieval entertainment is mostly someone talking while everyone else gets comfortable. An obscure cultural detail surfaces as shadows move along the walls. Many medieval people believed firelight distorted perception, making faces look untrustworthy and thoughts feel heavier. Important decisions were avoided at night for this reason. Historians still debate whether this belief was philosophical or simply a polite way of saying, let's deal with this tomorrow. After eating, the room rearranges itself again without discussion. Someone mends quietly. Someone stares into the fire, thinking thoughts that don't need resolution. The fire crackles softly, punctuation rather than performance. Outside, the town darkens fully. Doors close, animals settle. The well returns to stillness. Inside, tiredness deepens into readiness, the gentle kind that invites rather than demands. You lie down once more, straw familiar beneath you, your body settling easily now, trusting the routine completely. Breathing slows, thoughts soften at the edges. Tomorrow will arrive, you know that. It always does. For now, you let the evening complete its work, and you drift toward sleep, carried by repetition, warmth, and the quiet reassurance that nothing needs to change for rest to find you. The final day you notice unfolds, almost without announcing itself, like a page turned softly so it doesn't tear. Morning arrives, the way it always has, lights slipping in, air cool and patient, the town stirring with its familiar, careful confidence. Nothing is new, and yet everything feels complete. You wake during the gentle end of second sleep, not because you must, but because your body understands this rhythm now. Rising feels natural, unforced. You wash your face one last time with cold water that tells you, kindly, that you're still here. Clothes fall into place around you, worn but trustworthy. Bread appears again, faithful to the end. You eat without commentary. Here's the final historical truth to carry with you. Medieval daily life was not designed for happiness or misery, was designed for continuity, survival, repetition, belonging. Meaning emerged quietly from showing up day after day without expecting the world to surprise you. You step outside, the bell rings, you walk past the well still waiting, still reflecting and feel a private gratitude for its constancy. Work begins, ends, and begins again, almost symbolically now. Hands move, tools rest, the sun climbs, pauses, lowers. An obscure thought drifts through your mind as the day progresses. Many medieval people believed life itself was a cycle rather than a days folding into each other, seasons returning, stories repeating with small changes. Historians still debate whether this worldview brought comfort or resignation. Standing here, it feels like a bit of both. A quiet joke settles in gently. Medieval self-care is mostly do what needs doing, then lie down. As evening approaches one last time, you return indoors. Warmth greeting you like an old friend. Supper arrives, unremarkable and perfect in its reliability. Conversation fades naturally. The fire dims, straw waits. You lie down, breathing slow, body heavy in the best way. Outside, the town settles fully, holding itself together with habit and trust. And now, gently, the story loosens its grip. You imagine the street empty, the well still, the fields resting under a sky that doesn't demand attention. You feel the weight of the day dissolve, not erased, just set down. Breathing deepens. Thoughts stretch and soften, like fabric finally unrolled after being folded too long. The fire's warmth becomes memory. The bell's echo fades into silence. The town sleeps, and so do you, carried by repetition, steadiness, and the quiet comfort of knowing that nothing urgent waits for you now. There is no cliffhanger here, just a long, even breath, a final settling, and rest, arriving exactly on time.